when we look at our store, whatever business we're in, we typically look at it from where we are. And that's understandable, but it's not the best way. We need to turn it around and look at it when things are not going right. Look at it from the other side. Look at it from our customer's side, and look at it from the customers, also the same customer as a Google or a Walmart or a Facebook. It doesn't matter what the marketplace is or matter what model we're working with. The same person out there paying the dollar. We are a part of that marketplace. And so if we understand that, we're on side with them, it changes how we relate to it.
You're listening to The Growth Booth, the show focused on achieving lifestyle freedom through online businesses. Whether you're looking for step-by-step strategies to start building an online business, simple game plans to grow your business, or proven lifestyle freedom frameworks, you are in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the thousands of listeners already in growth mode.
Hey, Aidan Booth here. Welcome to episode number 57 of The Growth Booth. Great to have you tuning in here today. And today I want to talk about the number one skill that you need to work on in order to achieve your potential. And we're talking about mindset. We're talking about some of the soft skills, if you like, of performance. And no one better to have with me here today to chat about that than Brett Tannahill, who is a performance coach, a mindset coach in our Blueprint Academy mastermind. So Brett, thank you so much for taking some time out of your evening there to be with me today.
You're very welcome, Aidan. Very welcome indeed. Yes, I've been looking forward to this opportunity. Haven't seen you for a while.
So you're in Perth at the moment?
I'm in Perth, Western Australia, yes, which is problematic for some people on the other side of the world, but we managed to work it out.
Yeah, so you're almost you're 13 hours different to me. So when I'm waking up, you're winding down. So glad we can make it work. And look, I met Brett through our Blueprint Academy program. He originally came in as someone who was building his own business, and we soon realized that Brett was an absolute master of mindset and performance, and that led on to Brett actually working with us as our lead performance coach in our Blueprint Academy mastermind. And what this has done is it's given Brett an insight into seeing how a lot of people operate. And for our Blueprint Academy members, it's given them this huge advantage of being able to have a performance coach essentially on their team. So, you've worked with hundreds of budding entrepreneurs over the years. You've had this unique insight to watching people's journeys unfold. You've helped with the trials and tribulations, celebrated the wins. Has the softer side of performance been something that has always interested you, or is it something that you sort of fell into?
Good question, Aidan. At a very broad level, it's always interested me. When I was working in the corporate world and managing people, it was always important to me that I empower them to bring their best forward, because ultimately I'm lazy, so I'm not going to be micromanaging people when they should be doing it themselves. So I would always set things up to that way, which meant I needed to have an understanding of it's been a natural journey for me. Where I've come into it in more recent years is leaving the corporate world and then working with BPA and with the support in general, support desks. And what I've learned in that space, it really opened my eyes to the troubles, the challenges that people have. Not just in e-commerce, but in life, but they bring their life challenges into the e-commerce world. And that really, people tend to struggle. So I guess I saw an opportunity there. So I've upskilled myself, and I've also made the decision some years ago now to work remotely to satisfy my own interests and way of life. It's all sort of come together in that way. So the more I get into it, the more I love it. It's something that I never bore of. I love working with people, talking to people, and wherever I can, helping them grow their business and grow themselves personally as well, because that's ultimately what it's about.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of satisfaction in that. I know that for me and the businesses that I run, the things that give me the most satisfaction are when you're able to help someone and see them make that leap forward in their own life. Have you seen a lot of similarities between, I guess, managing people and some of the struggles that people would have in the corporate world versus what you're seeing from budding entrepreneurs? Or do you think that they're two very different challenges that people tend to go through? Do they stem from the same place? What's your take on that?
I used to think there'd be a sort of a not a seamless transition from real life, as it were, or corporate world into the e-commerce world, but I don't know. I no longer think that's the case. I think that no matter how successful one has been in we'll call it the corporate world, but pre-e-com and post-e-com, no matter how successful people have been in that space, that does not guarantee success in e-commerce at all, because it's still a new space.
I think also it's when you start building an online business, and when you say e-com, we are of course talking about any kind of online business, affiliate marketing, building e-commerce stores. It could be anything, but I think there's a big difference between getting up, going into your comfort zone, working a job, which you may have done for 10, 20, 30 years, versus sitting down and being a self-starter and having to live and die by your own decisions, essentially, at least in the business sense. So I think there are some similarities there, but also quite a lot of differences, and people start to realize those differences, and it can be especially challenging for people who have been relatively successful in corporate or traditional job to then come in and start challenging and facing some of their demons in the online business space.
Absolutely. In fact, that was one of the first things that when I got serious in my e-commerce and online world, I was transferring, and this applied at so many levels. It applied in how I came into the actual business to begin with. It came about how I manage VAs. It came about my decision-making processes. And when I realized that what had worked in the past wasn't working here, because what we don't understand is that when we move into a new space, we've got underlying fears, which we may not have a sense of, but they manifest in different ways. And one of the ways they do manifest is in our decision-making. We don't take the risks that we might have taken when it's on someone else's dollar and someone else's time. Because, hey, I'm going to get paid anyway. Well, it doesn't work that way when we go online, because it's a whole different dynamic. And that's what goes on in people's mind. But people don't understand. They just think, I'll transfer from here to here, or we're all okay. Not at all. Not at all.
Have you seen common traits? Like maybe you've seen common traps that people fall into when they are building an online business that are kind of rooted in their mindset. And at the same time, maybe on the flip side of that, you've seen some people succeed and you've seen some commonalities about why those people succeed. Maybe we could dive into some of these. Yeah.
Plenty of traps. And actually, there's plenty of avenues to success, but they tend to be not a natural space for a lot of people, so they don't recognize them. And if they do have a sense of them, they've then got to make some changes to the way they go about the whole process. And that's where mindset comes into it in a big way. But some of the typical traps, a big one is overthinking. just putting way too much thought into a situation that's pretty straight up and down. Like if the training says do it. There's a reason it's been put that way, because the people who are teaching you and the people who have provided the program are very experienced and have got proven success in that space. If people find their own way to make a version of it.
You're thinking about that overthinking. Do you think it's a result of people being afraid of making a mistake? Is a result almost of like procrastination? So I don't want to move forward because I'm worried this is going to happen. Any thoughts around why it is psychologically that people tend to overthink? Because I've seen it so many times. The message I've always given people is just keep it simple, just follow the recipe, and you can tweak things later. Just wondered if you've thought about the psychology behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really a form of self-sabotage, because people kid themselves into thinking they're busy. And when you're busy, we're doing what we're here to do. Again, we go back to the previous life and a new online life. This was one of the big things for me. Pre-BPA, when I first started, I was really busy creating systems to do things. And it was only when my business, in the first one I was involved in, it grew and then it plateaued. Because I was busy doing things that weren't producing outcomes. I was busy doing things that might have applied one day when the business takes off another direction. I've just wasted all that time, which often and usually it does, because you don't know what's coming. You've got to be very agile in this space. And this is, I must admit, when I heard you and Steve talking my early years, and you were saying these things, and I just think, really? Like, but if you miss all these things, but I really get it now, and that's what I'm teaching now, because I understand it now. So there's a lot of self-awareness in my own journey, is just stop not getting the outcome I wanted, having to be accountable for our outcomes. That's really important as well. And that's another trap. There's a lot of people out there who think, I've paid my money, now they can provide for me what I've paid for. That's not the way it's going to work either. So, but you're right, the self-sabotage is a big one.
Yeah, you sort of have to be a participant in your own rescue. I mean, it's kind of like you can, what do they say? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. So I think that first one, going back to that first trap, overthinking is something we see all the time. And I guess the solution to that is just to simply have faith and follow a recipe that's been laid out. And if I often think about or use the analogy of cooking. Now, I'm not a trained chef or anything like that. And when I'm creating a recipe, I don't say, you know what, I'm going to put 200 grams of butter instead of 100 grams. No, I don't do that. I just follow it, because I know that there's so much more chance that the recipe is going to turn out well if I'm following the instructions that a professional has given me versus trying to just make it up as I go. And I think that the exact same thing is true in business, and not just business, but in all areas of life. You know, if I'm training for something in the gym, I can follow guidance from someone who is a trained professional in that area, or I can just sort of wing it myself and see what happens. And more often than not, you're going to get better results if you're going with the professional advice. So overthinking is the first one, and the solution to that, I think, at least from my perspective, is to just keep it simple and put your faith in the recipe that oftentimes you may have paid money to use anyway.
That's it. Trust is a really big thing, because a lot of people don't trust themselves, even when they're in a new space. And so if they're not going to trust themselves, there's no way they're going to trust the messenger who they pay good money to receive the message from. But this is the subconscious stuff that plays out in here. So this is one of the things that fascinate me about it.
Today's show is brought to you by the Blueprint Academy, a coaching service that I've been providing for about 8 years now. If you're interested in getting one-on-one coaching from me and my team of experts, as well as being able to leverage the resources and infrastructure that I've got in my business, then head over to thegrowthbooth.com/academy to get all the details. I'm passionate about helping people build businesses online, and this is where I can help you. So again, head over to that link, thegrowthbooth.com/academy, and find out how we can help you at the Blueprint Academy today.
I think there is a unique opportunity if you have had bad experiences in the past, or you don't trust your own ability to do something. I think when you come into a training program or start working with an expert, there's an opportunity for you to lean on their expertise. So have that expert, whoever they are, be almost like your savior. And you say, well, you know, I haven't been able to achieve this in the past, but now I'm going to be able to, not because of my own ability, but because I'm leaning on someone else. So I think there's a little switch that people can do there to be more effective. Any other traps that you've seen repeat themselves?
Yeah, Brett? There's one which is it's hard for people to understand, but there's a real misunderstood. There's a real skewed focus on money, and that there's a neediness in that space, and that impacts our decision making again. So people want to get there fast, and we provide an opportunity to get there fast, but they want to get there even faster. And what that does in the mind, it starts to create what I call faulty thinking, or dysfunctional thinking, because it makes the decision making process actually takes people down the wrong path. And that's one of the things when people are not listening and not reading and not implementing as the training goes, because they're too busy trying to go fast, too busy. Now we've got, as you know, the course drip feeds every week. Well, people who say, I want to go to week 4. I don't need to do this first 2 weeks. Let's just set up the store. I want to go to week 4 where I can make money. That's not the way it works. It's not the way the mind works, and it's certainly dysfunctional and inappropriate way, and that really messes people up. And again, it all comes back to a self-sabotage outcome, really, one way or another. But one of the other big ones is just literally coming from a background of, or an upbringing, I guess, of dysfunction. And that's, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way or a judgmental way. I mean that's most people's normal space, but the society we live in these days imposes barriers, it imposes challenges, it imposes blocks to the natural way our mind is supposed to work. It sort of tries to corral us into certain ways. And when we don't challenge that, and I'm a natural challenger of things, if we don't challenge that, then we will end up being like a horse down through the corral chute, just being told to go, where do you go? And again, online is not a space for that. You pay for your training, you do the training, but you also need to have some self-awareness to go and learn more outside the training. It's like a driver's license, the training.
Yeah.
It's not going to teach you how to be an advanced driver.
Yeah. You mentioned something about the skewed focus on money, and I want to touch on this again because this is something that I see over and over again. People expect miracles to happen, even if you try to manage those expectations. So I think oftentimes there's a bit of importance needs to be put on managing the expectations. And I always tell people when they're starting an online business, look at it through a longer term lens, and that's going to be more beneficial for you in lots of ways. One is because you're not going to have pressure on yourself to make money in the next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Instead, you're going to be able to do something which is going to be better for you in the long term. And when I'm saying long term in the world of online business, I might be talking 6 months. I'm not talking 6 years. So I think that's really important. And also keep in mind, there is no business out there that I know of offline that you can build as quickly as what you can do online. So again, we're not talking about waiting 5 years to break even and have a business that provides you with a lot of freedom. We're talking about a matter of weeks, but not 1 week or 2 weeks in most cases. More like, maybe like something like 6 months. So, 20 weeks or something like that. And I think when you do that, you're bringing a level of reality to what you're doing, and you're treating it like you can then start to treat it like a business, and little by little build it in a structured way that enables you to get the kind of results that you want. So I think that skewed focus on money, and I must have it yesterday, and it's flawed from the outset because it forces you into trying to hit a home run on every single swing, and the chance of hitting a home run is so much lower than just knocking singles, as we talk about in our business. So I think that's a really, really important one. And what is the antidote to that, or what is the solution to that? What advice do you give someone when they've got this skewed focus on money?
I'll just put back on that, but what you were saying there, Aidan, because I just want to use a sporting analogy. And sport is wonderful to learn things, but Michael Jordan, the best, the most successful, most high-scoring basketball player ever. But he's also the guy who shot the most shots and had the most misses. And the reason he did is because he kept putting the ball up. And so if we align that with what we're talking about here with our online business, we'll just keep turning up. We'll just keep turning up. And whether it be putting product in your store or put another campaign to place, you just keep turning up. Without judgment, without expectation, you just keep doing, because there's a thing called the law of averages out there. And these are universal law, and that works. You just have to keep turning up. But people don't. And that comes back into mindset.
Yeah, couldn't agree with that more. I mean, so much of it is just turning up and being there and taking those little steps forward. And a good friend of mine used to say, people don't fail online, they just give up before the magic happens. And I've seen that happen, unfortunately, more often than it should. But if you do keep turning up, if you do keep chipping away at it, you can eventually get to a place where that magic does start to happen. What else have you seen there in the coaching that you've done that you think people listening to this today could learn from?
Well, there's obviously what we talked about is traps, but if you flip that over into the people who are successful, Well, it's a bit like a SWOT analysis, isn't it? Your opportunities are those things that were your threats. So you just turn it around. And one of the ways to do this is to reframe things. So if you're doing an action or whatever it is, and whatever the outcome is, you don't like it. Let's just put you don't like it. But there's always another side to it. The duality of life. There's always another side to whatever is in front of you. So you've got a choice. You can look at the negative side, which tends to be a negative mindset space. And those people get stuck. And there's a whole lot of way of being in that space. But they're the typical people who do get stuck. They're blaming everyone else or everything else and their lack of success. That it is actually within their power to make a decision to look at the other side and say, well, stop. What's going on the other side? And that's where you'll find that the positive side, because that's where the learning is. Because wherever there's a block in place, there's an opportunity to learn. I just call it feedback. And a really good one is, which is very frustrating, I know, but that's where some of the platforms that we are aligned with, we have to use them because that's what their role is and it's the place we're in. But I use Google and Facebook. We go back a few years with Google and COVID, and all sorts of stuff was happening. We had no control over it. But if you were the sort of person who took it on as, okay, well, this is the way, I've got no control over it unless all I can control is how I receive that. Then there are some people who just say, you need to help me, you need to help me. Or you can go into Google and find out exactly what Google's policies are and learn from that because they're still implementing their policies. But there's a key thing I want to mention here. When we look at our store, whatever business we're in, we typically look at it from where we are. And that's understandable, but it's not the best way. We need to turn it around and look at it when things are not going right. Look at it from the other side. Look at it from our customer's side. And look at it from the customers, also the same customer as a Google or a Walmart or a Facebook. It doesn't matter what the marketplace is or matter what model we're working with. The same person out there paying the dollar. We are a part of that marketplace. And so if we understand that, we're on side with them, it changes how we relate to it. They're not picking on us.
Yeah. A lot of people, I've seen this fall into almost this victim mentality, like, Google shut down my account versus really taking control of what you're doing. And instead of being a passenger in your life, actually steering your life in the direction that you want to go. And, I often talk about cause and effect, and two people could start off at the exact same point and get to a completely different place. And why does that happen? In fact, you mentioned something quite similar to this at the start of the call about this point of intrigue. Do you want to talk that through a little bit? Because I think it sort of ties in here with taking accountability and showing up and everything else.
Yeah, there's a thing that struck me fairly early on in my coaching life. It's probably one of the things that really influenced me to step further into it and really embrace this because it's now what I do full time. As I said, I love it. But we all turn up for the training. And I say we because I was in the same boat as everybody else who's listening to this podcast and everyone else who's been doing it. At one point in time, I was in the same boat. We turn up for the training, and the training is exactly the same. No matter where you live on the planet, if you pay the money, you get the training, it's exactly the same. How come, and then from when I got into support and started to understand and started to see outcomes and then talk to people and learn all about things, how come there's such a variety of outcomes from the very same training? It's the same as you talked about the recipe and cooking, Aidan. We've got one recipe. You put 10 people in a kitchen or in their own kitchens and you're going to get 10 versions of that recipe. It's the same words, it's the same ingredients, it's the same measurements, it's the same everything. So the only variable in all this is us as individuals. And so if it's not working, we've got to look at ourselves. We've got to look in the mirror and say, well, why isn't it working? And that can take some time. It means digging deep, and it means some things you might not want to face about yourself as well. But it's as simple and as complex as that.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful example because it really is the case where oftentimes people start at the exact same point. They've got the exact same recipe and it works out for some people and not as well for others. And I think in the vast majority of cases, it comes down to the mindset and the approach and the outlook, because everything else is the same. Now, obviously, there are elements of luck along everyone's journey, but I do believe that you make your own luck. And I'll give you another example of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's say you've got an e-commerce store or an affiliate website, and you're testing out different offers. You can test one, and you're going to have one chance. Maybe you get lucky, maybe you don't, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. If you test 10 different offers, then you're going to have 10 opportunities. And do you think you've got a better chance of getting lucky in air commerce here if you're testing 10 times more? Of course, you're going to have so much more chance, all else being equal. Again, making sure you've still followed the recipe, but you're just getting a wider cross-section of results. And again, if the recipe is a good recipe, then you're going to get a result that is going to be a win. So I think that's really, really interesting. And I think everyone is a little bit undercooked in the area of mindset and awareness for the most part. I think it's something that people should continue to work on. I know that, me in my life, I work on it regularly by reading books, from learning from people who are, the best in the world, and also, trying to make sure that I've always got a good frame of mind and a balanced frame of mind. So anyway, we've discussed making sure people don't overthink. We've discussed having trust in the system. We've discussed just turning up and continuing to put things out there, using the Michael Jordan analogy, reframing things. Maybe there's a silver lining or a good element to something that you may initially be frustrated by. And we started talking about taking accountability and being a driver in your journey to your destination, and not falling into this trap of being a victim or someone that's just sort of pushed along. Any other things that you want to mention here that you've seen come up over and over again?
Yeah, I guess the one word is this plateau. There's people, what's to talk about versions of mind, different types of mindset, but people tend not to, and this comes into the accountability side of things, people tend not to become accountable for their own lives. Now, I know you well enough to know you've got a book list going around, which has been going around for many years now, and it's got some wonderful books in it. So if there's going to be some advice for anyone who wants to improve, start by reading books by those people who have had success in this space, because you might have to read it for 2 days, 2 weeks, doesn't matter how long it's going to take you to read it. But if you can get one nugget out of it, that's worth that time. But I'd also suggest that be responsible for your own growth. Learn what's involved in establishing not just a positive mindset, but a growth mindset. I came into this online world like so many people, a technophobe. I knew what things did, but I didn't know how they did them. My first entry into Shopify was help BPA, help set up my store. But I decided I had to make a decision. Was I going to stay corporate, which I didn't want to do, and I wasn't going to do? So I had to reinvent myself. That's what I call it. And I started to do that by doing exactly what I've written here. Be consistent and persistent. I'd forget what I had to do on a Shopify store. I'd read it. By the time I get to do it, I forgot what I had to do. But I kept at it. And then one day I worked it out. And then one day I started to understand the thinking. And then now there's no bit of software I will not go into, and I can work out the thinking behind it. Because I developed my brain through neuroplasticity. I developed those, what they call those axons. So it might be a bit scientific, but this is what happens. So you've got the capacity. Everybody has got the capacity for this. It's not about a young dog and an old dog. I'm an old dog, and I did this in the last 5 years. And it means I can add so much more value to my business that I do, and obviously I'm doing this as well. So don't think that it's not possible. It's possible. You have to believe in yourself. You have to trust yourself, which means trusting the unknown. But just turn up, keep going, read, be exploratory, be curious, ask questions. We've got all the support there in the context of the different programs that Steve and Aidan run. It's all there. So use it, and use it with an open mind and a growth mindset. Know that there is success somewhere out there. You just got to keep turning up and finding it.
Yeah, I think a few sort of comments to leave us here, adding to what you've said. I think there's a phrase that I keep coming back to, saying over and over again, and that is, what you think about comes about. And if you are turning up every day and thinking about a problem, or thinking about, I'm going to create this passive income online, and you're just always thinking about that, one way or another, those thoughts are going to turn into behaviors, and those behaviors are going to turn into results. And a big part of this continuous thinking about something is linked to your mindset. So it's about thinking in the right way. You can focus on the problem, and ultimately you'll get that problem. It's like when you're teaching a kid to ride a bike, you're like, don't ride into that tree. And sure enough, the bike keeps leaning towards the tree, and they smash straight into the tree. And the same thing happens online. Don't go over there, don't go over there. And then you focus on that and you start going over there. Instead, however, you can focus on the destination where you actually want to get to, and keep that at the forefront of your mind, and try to incorporate a lot of these ideas that you've mentioned here about not overthinking, having trust in the process, keeping on turning up, seeing the positive side of everything, taking accountability, having responsibility, not being a passenger, but rather being the person that paves the road, a driver in your own destiny, and having an open mind, and keeping learning. And a lot of these things are like buzzwords, but they are proven over and over and over again, not by people like Brett and I, by the way, although I think we've got some good experience to share, but by the most successful people in the world. And that saying of success leaves clues is absolutely true. You don't have to look that far around you to see some people made it and really hit their potential, and others have sort of battled away and not been able to do it. And I think the vast majority of results ultimately stem back to your mindset and the way that you think, because that will enable you or disable you to be able to act and behave in certain ways, which then flows on to the results. So any final comments or thoughts to leave people with there, Brett?
Oh, Aidan, as we said before, I could go on and on and on in this space. So anyone who wants to hear me keep talking, then you have to hit me up with my email. But no, the one other thing I would just say is that there's a concept. It's more than a concept. It's what happens. People come to these areas, whether it be online, whatever it is in life, and if they turn up from a historical perspective as their identity being, we'll say a school teacher, and they've had enough of teaching, so they move into the online world. Ultimately, the online world is that of entrepreneurship. If we're treating it just as a hobby, as a business, we're just creating another job for ourselves. So we're not actually changing anything. Because if we're creating a job for ourselves, we bring the same dynamic into place as when we had a job, which is not going to take us anywhere. So we need to start looking from the perspective of an entrepreneur. And the growth mindset, which is negative and positive, or growth mindsets, the two overarching, but within the growth, there's a number of different mindsets. The entrepreneurial one is one. And the fastest way to that, there's a number of ways, but the easiest way, I guess, is to just embrace that. Trust the process. Trust the fact that people who are entrepreneurs have had success for a reason, because they've got certain habits. And they are in all the libraries, they're on all the YouTube channels, they are everywhere. As Aidan says, success leaves clues. It's everywhere, these learning opportunities. So take it up. Be responsible for your outcomes, and you're going to have success. It doesn't guarantee tomorrow or next week or next month, but it will happen. And success does not equate to money. Let me tell you that. Success is another space altogether. But all this you learn by embracing this journey of growth, and mindset is going to just take you down there. So work on your identity of an entrepreneur, and that will make a big difference. Then you become an entrepreneur who was a school teacher versus a school teacher who's trying to make $1 online. Big difference.
So I want to wrap this up now, and I'm going to leave you with 3 important links that you might want to go and check out in your own time. So first though, as always, you can find the transcript and these important links at thegrowthbooth.com. Navigate to episode number 57 To see a list of the different books that, the types of books that Brett and I were mentioning earlier, you can go to aidanbooth.com/books. This is where I publish the different books that I've read, and I think you get a lot of value out of those. If you want to learn more about the soft skills of mindset and things that you can do to really strengthen yourself in this area of your life, then you can head over to themindgame.com. That's a course that I put together. It's got 66 bite-sized, step-by-step videos that work you through some of these success traits of the most successful people that I know or know of in the world. And finally, if you want to be able to get more coaching from Brett, then the way that you can do that is by participating in our Blueprint Academy. And you can find out more about the Blueprint Academy by going to theblueprintacademy.com. And the Blueprint Academy is not something that is always open. We do intakes at different times of the year, but there's normally a waiting list that you can get on. And Brett, like I say, is one of the amazing coaches that I'm fortunate to work with there. And there's so much more that we could dive in with you. So, Brett, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you for taking some time out of your evening there. It's always good to chat with you, and look forward to doing it again soon.
Thank you very much, Aidan. I very much appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, I look forward to seeing some of you out there in the trenches and hearing about those success stories that are just up around the corner.
That's a wrap, guys. Head over to thegrowthbooth.com, find episode number 57 to listen to this again, to see all of the links that we've mentioned, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Growth Booth.